Hello students, today we will study poem 3 The Shed from class 7th Honeycomb book. The poet of the poem is Frank Flynn. This poem discusses about the imagination and fantasy of children which they usually have regarding the ghosts and supernatural creatures. Let's understand the poetry stanza-wise. Stanza 1. There's a shed at the bottom of our garden with a spider's web hanging across the door. The hinges are rusty and creak in the wind. When I'm in bed, I lie and I listen. I will open that door one day. Dear students, the poet in these lines is describing a shed that is at the bottom of his garden. At the bottom of the garden, there is a shed. Hardly anybody goes inside the shed. Therefore, the hinges or the door joints have become rusty and make a lot of noise whenever the wind makes them move. When the poet is peacefully lying in the bed, he sometimes hears noises from the shed. The poet wishes to be able to open the door of the shed someday. He is having fear to go there because he watches that everything there is strange. The doors also having some spider's web, and the hinges also or the doors also give very creaking sound, which gives him fear. But still he thinks that someday he will open the door. Let's recite stanza 2. There's a dusty old window around at the side with 3 cracked panes of glass. I often think there's someone staring at me each time that I pass. I will peep through that window one day. Dear students, the poet here discusses how he wishes to stare or to look inside the shed, as you can see in the image. The shed has a dusty old window on its side. 3 glass panes of the window are broken. Whenever the poet passes through the shed, he gets the feeling as if someone was staring at him, looking continuously at him. To find out, the poet wishes to peep inside the shed, means to bend and to look inside the shed. Now let's recite stanza 3. My brother says there's a ghost in the shed who hides under the rotten floorboards. And if I ever dare to set foot inside, he will jump out and chop off my head. But I will take a peek one day. Here, the poet discusses how his brother gives warning to him about the ghost inside the shed. The poet's brother talks about the presence of the ghost inside the shed and warns the poet that if he went inside the shed, the ghost would chop off his head. However, this doesn't much frighten the poet. He still wished to one day step inside, go inside the shed and see for himself whether the ghost is inside or not, or his brother is just making him scared. He wanted to know all these things. Now let's recite stanza 4. I know that there isn't really a ghost. My brother tells lies to keep the shed for his den. There isn't anyone stirring or making strange noises, and the spider has been gone from his web. Since I don't know when, I will go into that shed one day soon, but not just yet. Dear students, the poet in these lines seems to have grown enough to understand the truth. The poet is able to overcome his fears. He is able to understand that there is no ghost inside the shed. He understands that there is actually nobody inside the shed who stares at him or makes those strange noises. The spider, too, is no longer there. His brother had been telling him lies because he wanted to retain the shed for his own self. Therefore, very soon the poet would be able to set foot inside the shed. However, he says that this can't happen immediately. So, the central idea of the poem is rationality and fearlessness. Means whatever you think, you should think logically. If you think logically, means you are rational. And you should not have fears of those things which actually you have not seen. The poem teaches us that we should not believe in baseless and imaginative stories about ghosts and other supernatural creatures, as these stories are mostly used by people for their own benefit. I hope you understood the poem. Thank you very much for watching the video.